Have you ever wondered why the book Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, written nearly a century ago, still speaks to traders as if it were etched yesterday in the chaos of the markets? It is because beneath the charts, beneath the ticker tape, beneath every price that flickers, there is a timeless battlefield that has never changed, the war inside the trader's own mind. The story of Jesse Livermore, veiled through fiction, is not just about speculation, but about the eternal dance between greed and fear, order and chaos, mastery and destruction. The market may evolve with new technologies, new brokers, new algorithms, but the shadow of the human psyche remains the same, whispering the same temptations, repeating the same mistakes. Imagine this. You are seated before the screen, the digital glow burning into your eyes like the fire of an ancient oracle. Numbers move, candles form, waves of prices crash and retreat. To the crowd, these are prices. To you, they are voices. Every tick is a chorus of human hope and despair. Every surge is the heartbeat of a crowd drunk on greed. Every collapse is the scream of collective fear. And in that storm, you begin to realize you are not battling the market, you are battling yourself. Your hand trembles, not because the price is volatile, but because the shadow within you craves certainty where none exists. Livermore's journey is an archetype of the eternal trader's quest. He embodies the hero who sets out, not for gold alone, but for the alchemical transformation of the soul. He began as a boy reading ticker tapes, intoxicated by the rhythm of numbers, yet every triumph was shadowed by a fall. Why? Because the psyche, like the market, punishes arrogance and rewards humility. The more one identifies self-worth with wins, the more vulnerable one becomes to ruin. The unconscious, Jung tells us, will always drag the inflated ego back into the mud. Think of your own trades. That time when you were certain, absolutely certain, that the setup could not fail. You felt invincible, you leveraged high, you celebrated too early. Then the tide turned, and the market devoured you whole. The pain was not just financial, it was existential. It was the collapse of identity, the humiliation of seeing your reflection in the mirror of loss. In that moment, the market was not an external enemy. It was the shadow exposing your illusion of control. And yet, like Livermore, you returned again, because something deeper than profit was calling you, the desire to master yourself. Most traders think they are playing against the market, but in truth, they are playing against the archetypes within them. The trickster whispers of quick riches, urging reckless trades. The tyrant within punishes every mistake with self-hatred, driving one into despair. The fool believes every rumor, every tip, leaping into danger without preparation. And then there is the sage, the disciplined inner voice that speaks of patience, risk management, detachment. The tragedy of Livermore is that though he touched the sage, he often fell back into the arms of the trickster and the tyrant. His story is not merely one of wealth and ruin, but of the psyche caught in its own endless cycle of inflation and collapse. You, too, are caught in that cycle. You know the exhilaration of sudden gains, when the world seems to open before you, when your confidence swells, and you feel chosen by fate, and you know the despair of losses, when sleep eludes you, when shame burns hotter than any candle flame, when you ask yourself whether you were ever cut out for this arena. This oscillation between extremes is not a flaw of trading alone. It is the ancient battle of human desire itself. The Stoics warned of it. He who ties his worth to what he cannot control will always be a slave to fortune. Epictetus reminded us that freedom is not found in outcomes but in mastery of one's own response. The lesson hidden in Reminiscences of a Stock Operator is therefore not about a strategy, nor about a tip, nor about some secret indicator. It is about shadow work. It is about the courage to stare into the abyss of your own greed, your own fear, and refuse to be possessed by them. Livermore's life illustrates the danger of winning too easily, of believing the market has been conquered when in truth it has only begun to test you. The gods of the market do not reward arrogance, they crush it. They do not forgive attachment, they expose it. As you listen, ask yourself, which archetype rules your trading? Are you the fool, intoxicated by noise? The tyrant, enslaved to perfection and self-hatred? The trickster, forever chasing shortcuts? Or the sage, who has learned to accept the market as a mirror of the soul? Each trade you take is not simply a wager on price. It is a ritual confrontation with the unconscious. To enter the market without self-knowledge is to walk into the storm blindfolded. To enter with awareness is to walk the razor's edge. but with the strength of clarity. The truth that Reminiscences whispers across the decades is this: the market is not an external force to be conquered, it is an inner mirror. To win without mastering the self is to build castles on sand. To lose with awareness is to plant the seeds of transformation. The real game is not measured in dollars, but in the evolution of the soul. Every trader believes, at some point, that he has discovered the secret, a pattern that seems infallible, a method that seems eternal. Yet the deeper one ventures, the more the market reveals its true face, a shapeshifter forever morphing, forever exposing the hubris of those who believe in certainty. This is why Livermore's story endures. His triumphs were titanic, his collapses catastrophic, but through them we glimpse the psychological labyrinth that every trader must walk. His life was not a linear path of wins and losses, but a spiral, pulling him again and again into confrontation with his own unconscious. Think of the storm within him, the intoxicating joy when a position soared, the sickening despair when a fortune evaporated in hours. That storm lives within you as well. Perhaps you mask it with rationalizations, with excuses, with promises to be more disciplined next time. But deep down, you know the rush of placing a trade is not only about profit, it is about validation. It is about proving you are worthy, intelligent, chosen. And you know that the pain of loss is not simply about money. It is about humiliation, about the collapse of identity, about being unmasked before yourself as vulnerable and fallible. The market has no mercy for illusions. It shatters them with cold indifference. Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating the shadow, by facing the disowned parts of the self. Trading, in its purest form, is individuation in motion. Every temptation to overtrade is the shadow of greed whispering. Every paralysis of hesitation is the shadow of fear constricting. Every reckless doubling down is the shadow of desperation, pulling you deeper into chaos. Livermore faced these shadows, but he often became their victim. His genius allowed him to glimpse order within chaos, but his ego could not always withstand the weight of his own triumphs. He was both alchemist and prisoner, both visionary and addict. Ask yourself, how often have you been the addict? Not just addicted to winning, but addicted to the emotional spike, to the drama of the trade. You may tell yourself you are rational, that you trade based on systems and setups, but beneath that logic lies the craving for intensity, for the thrill that awakens you from the monotony of life. This is why losses often pull you back more fiercely than wins push you forward. The pain becomes a magnet, an unconscious compulsion to re-enter, to chase, to redeem. The market becomes less about money and more about emotional equilibrium. And in that moment, you are no longer a trader, you are a captive. The Stoics warned against this captivity. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man must be like a rock, against which the waves crash endlessly, but which remains unmoved. Can you imagine being that rock, to watch profits rise and fall without attachment, to see losses not as wounds, but as weather passing across your surface? This is the true discipline, the inner fortress that Livermore longed for, but could not sustain. His brilliance made him rich, but his lack of detachment made him fragile. For the trader, fragility is death. Look closely. Your greatest danger is not ignorance of the market, it is ignorance of yourself. You may master technical analysis, fundamental data, and macroeconomic cycles, but if you cannot master your own psyche, you will betray yourself at the worst possible moment. How many times have you seen a setup, entered correctly, then panicked at the first retracement, and exited, only to watch the price surge in your favor? That was not the market defeating you. That was your fear defeating you. How many times have you taken profits too early, unable to endure the uncertainty of letting them run? That was not volatility conquering you. That was your impatience enslaving you. The true battlefield is always internal. Livermore's spiral teaches us that wealth without wisdom is peril. Each time he rose, he believed the mastery of the market was complete, but each collapse revealed the truth. Mastery of self was unfinished. The same lesson is before you now. You may chase strategies, seek gurus, devour information, but unless you confront the shadow within, the greed, the fear, the craving, you will repeat his cycle. You will rise, you will fall, and the wheel will turn again. This is why Reminiscences endures. It is not merely a tale of a trader. It is a mirror held to every trader's soul. It whispers across time. You are not battling Wall Street. You are battling yourself. Until you understand this, the market will own you. There comes a moment in every trader's journey when the numbers on the screen dissolve, and what is left is only silence. The silence of the inner dialogue, the confrontation with the self. Jesse Livermore's life was a monument to this silence, broken by bursts of triumph and storms of ruin. His fortune, built and destroyed multiple times, reflects not simply market cycles, but the cycles of the unconscious. Gains without grounding inflated his ego. Losses without humility crushed his spirit. He lived the eternal drama of the psyche caught between light and shadow, mastery and madness. Have you felt that silence? The heavy pause after a devastating loss, when you stare into the empty glow of the screen, your breath shallow, your hands cold. In that silence, the market is no longer moving, but your mind is raging. Memories of missed chances, of reckless trades, of the voice that said exit now, but was ignored, swarm like vultures. That silence is where the true battle takes place, not in the entry or the exit, but in the space where you face yourself. The book reminds us that the market is merciless, but it is also just. It gives back to each trader not what they want, but who they are. The fool receives ruin. The patient sage receives longevity. The arrogant king is brought low, while the humble student is quietly rewarded. Jung wrote of archetypes as universal forces shaping human behavior, ancient patterns rising through the unconscious. In trading, these archetypes are alive, cloaked in numbers and charts. The hero emerges when you dare to risk, to step into the arena. The magician appears when you glimpse order in chaos, when your system seems to align with fate itself. The shadow creeps in as greed and fear, turning your strength into your downfall. Livermore danced with each of these forces, but the shadow often led the rhythm. His brilliance gave him the vision of the magician, yet the shadow whispered louder, urging excess, seducing him into overconfidence. His tragedy was not lack of intelligence. It was the refusal to integrate the shadow into his wholeness. And you hear your shadow whisper. That voice urging one more trade, though your rules say stop. That urge to chase, though you promised restraint. That temptation to double down, though the loss was already a teacher. Your shadow is not your enemy. It is a part of you, demanding recognition. If you suppress it, it grows in power and erupts at the worst moment. To acknowledge it, to integrate it, is to weaken its grip. Seneca warned that the greatest wealth is freedom from desire, not the accumulation of gold. To trade with mastery is not to destroy greed and fear, but to hold them in balance, to know their voice without obeying it. Imagine the market as a vast ocean. The waves rise and fall, sometimes violent, sometimes calm. You cannot command the sea. You cannot demand it yield to your will. All you can control is the vessel of your mind. If your hull is weak with arrogance, the waves will shatter it. If your sails are torn by impatience, the wind will betray you. But if you strengthen the ship with discipline, if you navigate with patience and acceptance, you can endure storms that sink others. Livermore's voyages were spectacular, yet his ship was often unfortified, his ego too heavy to float. The ocean swallowed him, as it swallows all who forget their fragility. Now turn the gaze inward. Why do you trade? Is it wealth? Is it freedom? Or is it something unspoken? The desire to prove yourself, to silence the doubters, to conquer the world that once overlooked you. If your motive is shadowed by ego, the market will expose it. If your self-worth clings to every tick, the market will torment you. If your heart craves approval more than truth, the market will humiliate you. The discipline of trading is the discipline of detachment, of entering each trade with clarity and exiting without regret. Only then do you align with the Stoic wisdom. Control what is yours, accept what is not. Livermore's tale is a warning and a guide. It shows the peril of brilliance without balance, and the inevitability of collapse when self-mastery is neglected. He was not destroyed by the market, he was destroyed by his unmastered self. His story endures because it reflects the truth of us all, that wealth without wisdom is ruin, that strategy without discipline is delusion, that victory without humility is already defeat. The market does not merely test your account, it tests your soul. So ask yourself now, when the silence comes, when the screen glows cold after gain or loss, who are you in that moment? Are you the slave of fortune, trembling before her whims? Or are you the master of the self, unmoved, prepared, at peace? The answer to that question is not found in books or strategies. It is found only in the crucible of your own shadow. Some traders search endlessly for the hidden formula, the golden key that will unlock eternal profit. They scour books, subscribe to systems, follow gurus, as if wisdom were a commodity to be purchased. Yet Reminiscences of a Stock Operator reveals the harsh truth. No formula exists that can shield one from the tides of human nature. The market is not defeated by knowledge alone. It is a mirror that reflects every unmastered corner of the self. Jesse Livermore possessed knowledge that eclipsed his peers. He could read the rhythm of the tape as if it were a living being, whispering secrets. And yet, knowledge was not enough. He rose, he fell, he rose again, and still his inner shadows dictated the cycle. Picture the archetype of the eternal gambler, stepping again into the arena after ruin, driven not by rationality but by compulsion. Livermore embodied this archetype. His victories were dazzling, but each time he stood at the summit, the unconscious pulled him back down. He had conquered the charts, but he had not conquered his own psyche. This is the lesson the book whispers in its pages. Mastery of the market is inseparable from mastery of self. To separate the two is to chase illusions. You have felt this compulsion too, though you may hesitate to admit it. That urge to re-enter after a loss, not because your system signaled it, but because your pride demanded redemption. That hunger to risk larger than planned, not because probabilities justified it, but because greed whispered that fortune favored you. How many times have you watched yourself act against your own rules, almost as if another part of you took command? That is the shadow in motion. You are not irrational by accident, you are possessed. Jung warned that whatever remains unconscious will rule the life as fate. In trading, the unconscious rules through the silent hand of fear and greed. The Stoics would call this slavery. Epictetus said that the man who is disturbed by what lies beyond his control is enslaved, even if he wears the crown of a king. In the market, the enslaved trader is not one who loses, but one who cannot detach. Loss is inevitable, but enslavement is a choice. Livermore, for all his genius, was enslaved by the need for significance. Each fortune was not enough. It had to be greater, more spectacular, more legendary. Each ruin was not enough. It had to be redeemed with equal grandeur. The cycle consumed him because his worth was bound to the outcomes. When the account fell, his soul fell with it. Can you recognize this in yourself? That voice that ties your identity to your profit and loss statement, that whispers you are a failure because of a bad trade, or a genius because of a lucky one. This is the lie that destroys traders. You are not your wins. You are not your losses. You are the mind that observes them, the spirit that learns from them, the presence that endures beyond them. Until you accept this, you will be chained to the wheel, dragged endlessly through elation and despair, like Livermore, brilliant yet broken. The book is more than biography, is a map of the inner landscape of every trader. Each chapter reflects an archetypal trial, the intoxication of early success, the humiliation of arrogance, the despair of ruin, the temptation of revenge, the fleeting clarity of discipline, the relapse into compulsion. It is a cycle as old as human desire. Livermore lived it outwardly, but inwardly it is the same cycle you repeat each time you enter a trade without awareness. To escape it, you must transform the battle. No longer is it you versus the market. It is you versus yourself. The only true victory is the conquest of the inner tyrant. Imagine for a moment that you could stand apart from the storm of prices. Imagine the chart moving, the candles forming, the crowd panicking, and yet within you there is stillness. A trade enters, a trade exits, and your pulse does not shift. Profits come, losses come, and you remain unmoved, as steady as the mountain against the wind. This is not fantasy. It is the Stoic ideal made flesh in trading. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the universe is change, and our life is opinion. The market will always change. It is your opinion of it that brings torment. To master opinion is to master the self. To master the self is to finally see the market as it truly is. Not enemy, not God, but mirror. Livermore's life warns what happens without this mastery. Genius without detachment collapses. Wealth without discipline evaporates. Triumph without humility becomes the seed of ruin. But the same life, when read deeply, guides us to the opposite path. Awareness, patience, acceptance, detachment. The wisdom is simple, yet its practice is lifelong. The question is whether you will heed it before the cycle devours you, or whether you will walk the same spiral, rising and falling, until the lesson breaks you. Ask yourself now, not tomorrow, not after another loss. Will you chase another illusion of control, or will you begin the work of mastering the only thing you can truly control, yourself? The answer determines not just your trading, but your life. There is a haunting truth in the pages of Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, that the market is not a stage upon which the trader performs, but a mirror that reveals what the trader already is. Jesse Livermore's story is not simply about speculation. It is about the unmasking of a man before his own psyche. Every fortune he amassed was a reflection of his brilliance. Every ruin was the shadow of his inner compulsions rising to the surface. He did not merely lose to the market, he lost to the unseen forces within himself. And so do you, whenever you mistake your unchecked emotions for signals, whenever you confuse euphoria for certainty, whenever you bow to fear disguised as prudence. Think of how often you have stood at the threshold of triumph, only to sabotage yourself. Perhaps you cut profits short because the silence of uncertainty was unbearable. Perhaps you held a sinking position because admitting you were wrong felt like a wound too deep to endure. Perhaps you traded again and again in a single day, not out of opportunity but out of desperation to silence the gnawing emptiness inside. In those moments, it was not strategy that guided you. It was the shadow and unconscious master commanding you with invisible chains. Jung spoke of individuation, of becoming whole by facing what we deny. To trade without individuation is to place your very livelihood in the hands of an enemy you refuse to name. Livermore's cycles of rise and fall embody this principle with merciless clarity. He could see patterns that others could not. He had discipline at times that astonished even the most seasoned operators. Yet discipline was often temporary, fleeting, like a candle in the wind. The craving for significance, the need to prove himself, the inability to detach from the ecstasy of winning and the agony of losing, these tore through him like storms. He was a man who could master the market but could not master himself. The lesson is carved into his fate. Brilliance without balance is ruin. Now reflect. Are you walking the same path in miniature? The account may not be millions, but the psychological battlefield is the same. You may think the stakes are smaller, but the archetypes do not measure in dollars. They measure in human frailty. The fool does not care if you lose 1,000 or 1,000,000. His laughter sounds the same. The tyrant does not care if your shame is private or public. His whip strikes the same. The magician does not care if your insight is fleeting or profound. His revelation gleams the same. The archetypes play their eternal game, whether in Wall Street's halls or on your modest screen. The question is whether you will watch them play, or whether you will be their pawn. The Stoics offer a way out of this slavery. Epictetus taught that freedom is found, not in what happens, but in how one responds. Loss is not the chain. Attachment is the chain. Profit is not the crown. Dependence is the crown. To be free, you must learn to see the market as weather. Does the storm insult the mountain? Does the rain humiliate the sea? They endure without protest, because they do not cling. The trader who wishes to be free must become as they are enduring, detached, unshaken by fortune's whim. Livermore never reached this freedom. His brilliance was real, but his spirit remained captive. And captivity, in trading, always ends in destruction.